Happy Thanksgiving month, everybody, and Tony here with my review of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte with once again conductor Friedrich Pretorius, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. This marks the 7th time I saw Gunther Kremer's production of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte at the Deutsche Oper Berlin because I wanted to see, hear, and witness Kangyoon Shine Lee perform the role of Prince Tamino. It's been a year since I first saw Mr. Kangyoon Shine Lee perform the role of Ferrando from Così fan tutte at the Hochschule für Musik Hans Eisler Berlin. Although I believed that he was the best out of all the performers at that night, I still confirm that his ever-growing career and his ever-blossoming light lyric tenor voice solidifies him to be one of the best, if not one of the finest singers I've been listening to thus far, especially when it comes to light lyric tenors. With every succeeding role I saw him in, whether they be the small roles or some slightly larger roles, from Giuseppe from La Traviata all the way up to Arturo Bacla from Lucia di Lammermoor, and even Walter von der Vogelweide from Tannhäuser and the young sailor from Tristan und Isolde, he just keeps on getting better and better. And his performance tonight as Tamino was no exception. I also have to thank Mr. Kangyoon Shine Lee for giving me the free ticket / gift ticket for tonight's performance of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte. So I have to thank him with all of my heart. I had a wonderful time, and here he was at his vocal best, delivering all the vocal goods as Prince Tamino. He was romantic, he was charming, and he was youthful. His voice kind of reminded me of other youthful sounding Taminos of the past, such as Fritz Wunderlich, Nikolai Gedda, Peter Schreier, and Leopold Simonov. He had that boyish type of voice, that youthfulness, and that sheen and elegance that made him an absolutely charismatic, charming, and elegant prince that I managed to keep my eyes totally glued to him every time he was on stage, and my ears perked up every time he opened his mouth to sing all of those golden silvery tones just pouring out of his mouth. Yes, I might prefer the more hefty voices found in lyric tenors such as Peter Anders, Colomon von Pataki, Bela von Kuerni, Richard Tauber, Stuart Burroughs, Gustav Winberg, and Francisco Araiza. But Kangyoon Shine Lee won me over tonight because of his precision, his ever-sterling technique, in which he was able to cover his notes superbly, as well as use sufficient squillo in the top notes. And I'm sure that if he continues to develop his voice in the right way, I could see him a lot more leading man roles, such as Alfredo from La Traviata, Edgardo from Lucia di Lammermoor, Elvino from La Sonnambula, Arturo Talbo from I Puritani, Tebaldo from I Capuletti e Montecchi, Matteo from Arabella, Nadir from Le Pêcheur de Perles, Péléas from Péléas et Mélisande, Georges from L'Étoile du Nord, Daoud from the Ägyptische Helena, Ruggero Lastuc from La Rondine, and more performances of Cavaliere Belfiore from Il Viaggio a Reims, and lest I forget about Belmonte from Die Entführung aus dem Serail, and Corradino from Matilde de Chabran. The possibilities for Kangyoon Shine Lee are absolutely endless, and he had the vocal goods that he managed to deliver extremely well to prove that he is one of the finest singers I've ever heard thus far. So bravo to Mr. Kangyoon Shine Lee for a job excellently done as Prince Tamino. He was regal, yet boyish and youthful, and he managed to produce such wonderful tones, complete with good squillo and an equally focused voice that made him radiate throughout the theater. So 1,000, if not 1,000,000 salutes to him, and may he continue to strengthen his technique, strengthen his squillo, and furthermore, strengthen every vocal asset that he has so that he will continue to radiate and show a lot more charisma with every succeeding performance that he has had, let alone in his future. Burkhard Ulrich was charismatic and charming as the second priest. He was, as always, a fine singing actor, and he had a fine stage presence to be coupled with his sterling character tenor voice, thus making him laudable as a singing actor. And Chance-Jonas O'Toole was absolutely charming, charismatic, and sterling as Monostatos. He was able to bring in youth and vibrance to the role and make it his own, thus making Monostatos quite darkly charming in his own special way, yet still youthful and fresh as a daisy. Hong-kyun had brilliant top notes, as well as a plush and fine timbre that I almost mistook for a tenor, even though he once started out as a bass, but eventually has been singing baritone in the chorus. But when I heard him tonight, he sounded more like a strong spinto tenor. And who knows, there could be a brilliant future for Mr. Hong-kyun singing more spinto tenor roles, and I'm sure that he might develop into a tenor, much like his predecessors Claude Heater, Hugh Beresford, Ramon Vinay, and to some extent Carlo Bergonzi and James King. His sturdy timbre managed to make him strong as the first armed man. As always, Philip Yikal was charismatic, charming, comedic, and absolutely engaging as Papageno. Sure, there are times that his voice lacked a bit of that additional heft and that additional richness and roundness that I love in many true baritones singing Papageno, such as Gerhard Husch, Carl Schmidt-Walter, Hermann Prey, Giuseppe Taddei, and Sesto Bruscantini, and let's not forget about Vladimiro Ganzarolli and Walter Berry. But Philip Yeka was able to be such a fine vocal actor that I was still able to forgive whatever shortcomings he had. He continued to be in tip-top form, all thanks to his charisma, charm, and absolutely wonderful likability. And he was, as always, addicting to listen to from beginning to end. So bravo to Philip Yikal for being such a strong trooper, as always, as Papageno. Also striking again as Sarastro was Patrick Getty. His tall, handsome, and strong stage presence was, as always, a wonderfully great welcome to any basso cantante, let alone any great basso profondo singing Sarastro. Sure, there are times that his tone still has that throatiness, but I could easily forgive that little nitpick because his voice was still rich, imposing, and strong, and absolutely cavernous, and totally worth listening to because of that vocal strength that he had. He was vocally imposing from beginning to end, and he brought in virility, nobility, and great strength to make Sarastro a wonderfully awesome and wonderfully virile character, complete with that muscular strength that he had in his basso profondo voice. So Patrick Getty still wins in my eyes for what he was able to accomplish as Sarastro. Byung-gil Kim was sufficiently resonant and equally virile as he's always been as the second armed man. So props to him for making the best out of this character part and using that resonant bass baritone / basso cantante voice of his to make such a great impression on the second arm man. Markus Bruck's voice might show some wear and tear as it's been for the past few years, but he was still able to produce some good low notes as the speaker, and his stage presence was strong as always. Yes, his throatiness and his woofiness was still an issue because who I have in my ears as some of the greatest singers of the Speaker of the Temple were, without a doubt, Hans Hotte being my number one favorite and Franz Krass following suit. And lest I forget about Paul Schöffler, who was in league with Hans Hotte and Franz Krass as my personal favorite singer of the Speaker of the Temple. At least Markus Bruck's stage presence was strong and sturdy, and he was still able to make the best out of this character part. Kyle Miller was constantly charming and constantly charismatic as the first priest. He was able to make the best out of this character part, all thanks to his sturdy, solid, and sufficiently rich and noble cavalier baritone voice that has all the potential to keep on growing and maybe even sing a lot more leading man roles. This gentleman knew how to manipulate his voice to make it ring and radiate and make it sound resonant, thus making Kyle Miller a winner in my eyes. And he was able to do so with sufficient strength, charisma, and virility. So bravo to Kyle Miller for what he was able to accomplish as the first priest. Hye-Young is certainly no stranger to the Queen of the Night, and this time she has grown in coordinated chest tones as well as a plusher tone that made me see and hear just how much she has been maturing as a singer. Yes, I still prefer a true dramatic coloratura soprano singing the Queen of the Night in the veins of Serafima Dineva, Ray Woodland, Colette Laurent, Jutta Fulpius, Christina Dötcom, Rita Shane, and Edda Moza, and even fuller-toned lyric coloratura sopranos who could also have a go at dramatic coloratura soprano roles such as Christiane Edda Pierre, Sylvia Gesti, Ursula Kossuth, Tatiana Sterling, and Karin Ott, just to name a few. But I still have to give a lot of kudos and a whole lot of acclaim to Hye-Young for constantly growing in charisma and also for continuing to bring in an icy fierceness that made the Queen of the Night an absolute standout, let alone made her performance as the Queen of the Night something worth watching and something worth listening to. Nina Solodovnikova struck again as Pamina, and she was also able to maintain that voluminousness that was her major asset about her voice, and it radiated as always throughout the theater. It showed a lot of heft, strength, and strong vocal presence that I was able to be so hypnotized by Miss Solodovnikova and her vocal prowess. While I still can applaud Nina Solodovnikova for doing an excellent job as Pamina, there were times that she still had problems with coordinated chest tones, and that felt like an Achilles heel for her because sure, she had her moments where she can sing coordinated chest tones, especially in the later part of the opera, but there were also times when she gave into singing in collapsed head voice. And it also says a lot when a good chunk of lyric coloratura sopranos and light lyric sopranos who sang Pamina could also sing in coordinated chest tones and use chest tones to their advantage, such as Anna Moffo, Valerie Masterson, and my personal favorite singer of the role who has managed to master the art of singing with great coordinated chest tones, the one and only Ileana Kotrubash, a true master when it comes to singing with those wonderful chest tones. And lest I forget about Edith Mattes, Anneliese Rothenberger, Ruth Margret Pütz, Sonia Schöner, Lisa de la Casa, and Agnes Giebel, plus Gail Robinson, and maybe to some extent Barbara Hendricks. Whether they be lyric coloratura sopranos or light lyric sopranos, those sopranos who sang Pamina all had great coordinated chest tones, and I'm certain that this is a voice that can sing the likes of Antonia from Le Comte of Man, Lucia Ashton from Lucia di Lammermoor, Medora from Il Corsaro, Louise from Charpentier's Louise, Mignon from Thomas Milnion, Berthe from Le Prophète, Alzira from Verdi's Alzira, Magda di Civri from La Rondine, Anna from Le Villi, and Truelove from The Rake's Progress, Mélisande from Péléas et Mélisande, and Leila from Le Pêcheur de Perles, so long as she coordinates her chest tones well and even a lot more strongly. Hence, I highly encourage Nina Solodovnikova to keep on developing her core, continue to develop her chest tones, and use her chest tones to her advantage to make her voice even fuller, even richer, and even rounder, because this is a voice that not only has great potential to continue to shine and radiate, but also a voice that has great vocal presence, a voice that can continue singing big and loud and fresh. It's just that I want to ensure that her vocal growth is not only realistic, but also shows strength and continuous discipline. Despite some of the minor issues I've had with Nina Solodovnikova in terms of some of her chest tones, I still have to give her loads of credit for what she was able to accomplish tonight as a singing actress. She was charismatic, charming, and she had a great vocal presence to make her prowess as a singing actress all the more awesome and all the more engaging. Alexandra Oomans was charming, sweet, and lovely as Papagena, and I could sense a great future in this young light soprano / coloratur soubrette who is able to make Papagena an absolutely lovely character to witness on stage. She had great vocal coordination, and she receives a huge A+ for doing such a fine job singing Papagena, and I can certainly see a great future in Alexandra Oomans singing roles like Gilda from Rigoletto, Nanetta from Falstaff, Oscar from Bardo in Mascara, Tebaldo from Don Carlo, Lisette from La Rondine, Lauretta from Gianni Schicchi, and Sophie from Werther. These are roles that I would love to see Alexandra Oomans sing in, especially a lot more often. And she's definitely rocked the show tonight as a fine and pert Papagena. The three ladies continue to be wonderfully sung by Maria Vasilevskaya's sturdy and charismatic lyric soprano voice that can hit the high notes beautifully, Annika Schlich's plush and awesomely round and rich mezzo-soprano voice that had a strong vocal presence and continues to grow stronger with every performance that she's in, even to the point where I'm more convinced that she should have sung the third lady because of her strong vocal presence. And Stephanie Wake Edwards really taking advantage of her chest tones like any true mezzo would. So these three ladies managed to rock it tonight and do so with a whole lot of class, nobility, and great artistry, and the soloists of the Tölzer Knabenchors managed to do such lovely jobs singing the three boys. So overall, the singing managed to be of really good quality, and I have to salute Kangyoon Shine Lee for really striking up the band as Tamino, all thanks to his sterling technique and his awesome vocal acting, let alone awesome stage acting. He was totally involved as a singing actor. He brought in youthful nobility as Tamino, and the future continues to look really great and bright and brilliant for Mr. Kangyoon Shine Lee as a sterling and absolutely dashing light lyric tenor. Equally as wonderful was Nina Solodovnikova, who, although still had some issues with her chest tones, they could be easily forgiven because her voice was wonderfully voluminous. It still had charisma and a whole lot of heft to make her a charming and involving singing actress. Not to mention her chemistry with Kangyoon Shine Lee as Tamino was absolutely superb. And I also have to give major props to Patrick Getty, Markus Brück, Kyle Miller, Burkhard Ulrich, Hye-Young Moon, Maria Vasilevskaya, Annika Schlicht, Stephanie Wake-Edwards, Alexandra Omens, Philip Yekal, Chance-Jonas O'Toole, Hong-kyun Oh, Byung-gil Kim, and the soloists of the Tölzer Knabenchors for contributing so well to tonight's performance of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte and even bolstering the evening with everything they've got. The conducting done by Friedrich Pretorius was, as always, brisk, bold, and brassy. Yes, it's still quite fast in some of the more solemn moments, where it could use a lot more nuance and reflectiveness and that more meditative quality, especially when it's in the overture or in some of the more priestly moments. But he still managed to keep up the pace in the more charged up moments. And although there are times that the brass tended to be a bit over-dominating, he was still able to strike up that orchestra with intensity and involvement, even though he could show a lot more nuance and a lot more colors and tones, but he was still a strong conductor in his own special way, and what more can you expect from the chorus and the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin? Everybody was a star tonight, and they bolstered tonight's performances with all of their great talents and even made the singers' qualities a lot more enhanced. Kangyoon Shine Lee was an absolute knockout in the best possible way as Prince Tamino. His clarion and gorgeous tone, his youthful charm, and that silvery edge that he's had to his light lyric tenor voice made him a true star of the evening. And he managed to qualitatively outsing everybody, all thanks to the discipline he was able to provide, as well as that class that he had as a singing actor. Quantitatively, when it came to outsinging all the singers, Nina Solodovnikova as Pamina and Patrick Getty as Zarastro managed to do just that, especially where Miss Solodovnikova's voluminous lyric coloratura soprano voice managed to radiate with sheen and a whole lot of womanly elegance, and where Patrick Getty's voluminous, cavernous, and strong Zarastro made him a standout tonight. But when I get down to brass tacks, Kangyoon Shine Lee's artistry was sterling and superb, and he definitely carried the evening by the weight of his shoulders. And it was all thanks to bringing in that cultivated tone that made him brilliant and a whole lot of charisma that made him radiate and shine, no pun intended. And for those of you who caught tonight's performance of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, starring Kangyoon Shine Lee as Prince Tamino, what'd you think of it? Did you feel that Kangyoon Shine Lee was the best performer as Tamino? And did you also feel that he was able to emulate a lot of the great Taminos of the past, especially of the more youthful variety, such as Nikolai Gedda and Fritz Wunderlich? Did you also feel that he was able to do the role justice? Was there also a singer who stole his thunder like Nina Solodovnikova or Patrick Getty? Did you also feel that the singers were able to do a great job? Who was your favorite singer out of this cast of singers of the Zauberflöte? Or did you even feel that the singing tonight was not really to your liking and kind of fell short of certain demands? Please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for my review of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte starring Kangyoon Shine Lee as Tamino at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. Tune in tomorrow for my review of the second Lord of the Rings film, The Two Towers. So until then, good night everybody and happy Thanksgiving month!